16-year-old Raina Risen was one of LaPorte's friendly inhabitants. Raina enjoyed spending time with her parents, Bernie and Karen, and she was particularly close to her sister Wendy, who was 1 year her junior. Raina excelled in school and was known to be a popular girl who got along with most of the disparate cliques that are often found in American high schools. In her spare time, Raina worked part-time at the Pine Lake Animal Clinic in the town of LaPorte. The veterinarians she worked for stated she had a natural gift for the position and would no doubt someday realize her dream of becoming a veterinarian and opening her own clinic. But that dream was shattered when she vanished from the animal clinic on the night of March 26, 1993. When Raina failed to come home that night, her parents and sister began to worry. The responsible 16-year-old always checked in with her parents, especially if she stayed all night at a friend's. Raina's parents called around to her friends, but no one had seen her. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. The local police and sheriff's department soon got involved, and the search for Raina Risen became a missing person case. Friends and family of Raina joined together with local law enforcement to find her by searching local ponds, rivers, and fields. Her family also plastered the area with flyers that had recent pictures of Raina. The extensive search quickly paid off when Raina's car was located a day after her disappearance in a rural area of LaPorte County. But there were no signs of Raina. An examination of Raina's car seemed to reveal nothing that could help investigators. There was no blood present, and there was no damage to the car. It was as if she simply drove the car to that location and then left it for whatever reason. The discovery of the car raised a lot of red flags, but the local police were quick to point out that at that point they only had a missing person case on their hands. The disappearance frightened residents of LaPorte County and also brought media attention to the area. Raina's disappearance was featured 3 times by John Walsh on America's Most Wanted in just 1 month. And Oakland Athletics owner and part-time LaPorte resident, Charlie Finley, offered a $25,000 reward for Raina's safe return. To some outside LaPorte County, Finley's interest in the case appeared to be grandstanding. But the locals knew he was sincere. Yes, the billionaire had a tendency to be flamboyant at times. Finley donated much of his money to support schools in the county, and even lived in the area while he owned the Athletics. But despite the immense media attention, profiles on America's Most Wanted, and the reward offered from Finley's own pockets, the police received no credible leads as to Raina's whereabouts. Then, about a month after her car was discovered, the body of Raina Risen was found in a lake in LaPorte County. The investigation then shifted from that of a missing person case to a homicide. But unfortunately for the authorities, the fact that Raina's body was submerged in water for so long meant that it would be more difficult to lift forensic evidence from the scene or Raina's body. The autopsy determined that Raina died of strangulation, and although DNA profiling was becoming more widely used by law enforcement in 1993, no forensic evidence was taken from her body. Police could not even say for sure if she was killed at the location where she was discovered or dumped at the scene. There were also apparently no eyewitnesses to the murder. Who would kill such an innocent girl? As time moved further away from the discovery of Raina's body, her murder began to slowly fade from the public eye. Her family held vigils every year, and her case had an occasional mention on America's Most Wanted. But by 1998, it seemed as though the killer would never be caught. But then, an arrest was made. Raina's brother-in-law, Ray McCarty, who was 28 at the time of her murder, was arrested and charged with the killing in 1998. When Ray was 24, he began molesting 12-year-old Raina, which resulted in a pregnancy when the girl was just 13. McCarty used the typical method of operation of a child predator by first appearing as a friend to Raina, and then using a combination of compliments and threats to sexually molest her. He was eventually convicted of molesting Raina, served time in jail, and was then placed on probation. The local police were particularly interested in the fact that McCarty threatened Raina and her parents' lives if she ever revealed the truth of his despicable acts. She did report him and was later murdered. Almost immediately, McCarty was the top suspect. Besides his past crimes and threats against Raina, he was unable to account for his whereabouts during the time Raina was abducted. Despite the circumstantial evidence against McCarty, there was no physical evidence, and no eyewitness that could place him with Raina the day she disappeared. Perhaps feeling a bit of pressure, the LaPorte County Prosecutor's Office charged McCarty with murder in 1998, but released him 15 months later when it was clear there was not enough evidence to convict him. Investigators either had to find more evidence against McCarty or look for new suspects. Was Raina the victim of a local serial killer? Larry Dwayne Hall was described by many as polite and mild-mannered. Yet, beneath the calm exterior lurked a raging serial killer. Larry Hall was a native of Wabash, Indiana, who worked as a janitor and enjoyed taking part in Civil War reenactments in his free time. He also enjoyed killing women. Hall confessed to killing a number of women, and some authorities believe the count may be as high as 40. They think that as he traveled the country taking part in battle reenactments, he was also killing women. So far, Hall has not garnered as much attention as other more well-known serial killers, but that may change if more murders are definitively attributed to him. In 2010, a book written by Christopher Martin titled Urges, a Chronicle of Serial Killer. Larry Hall was published that argued Hall may be Risen's killer. He pointed out that Hall and McCarty knew each other in grade school, which suggested that there may have been collusion in Raina's murder. Martin also stated that a police search of Hall's home turned up a box of birth control pills with Raina Risen's name on it, although investigators said that none of the drugstores in the area had a prescription for Risen. He was also apparently out of the area doing a reenactment when Raina disappeared. It was never explained why Hall had those pills in his possession, but some investigators believe it was part of one of the killer's sick fantasies. Hall, like many other people in Indiana, simply followed Raina's case and got some sort of perverse pleasure out of fantasizing about the details of her death. LaPorte County authorities were adamant that there was no way Hall was Risen's killer. To the public, it seemed as though Raina's killer, or killers, may never be caught. But behind the scenes, as Martin was attempting to finger Hall, the police were about to nab the killer. The criminal underworld is an interesting place. Yes, there is a criminal code where it is a big no-no to be a snitch or informant for the police. But it is also a society where every man is out for himself. Loyalties are often tenuous and subject to change depending on the situation a criminal may find himself in, such as the capricious nature of his cohorts. A criminal who is tight-lipped and loyal to another person at one time may find that loyalty detrimental to his own life in the future. The criminal underworld is also a domain driven by fear. Some of the most successful criminals keep their underlings under control through extreme acts of violence that are perpetrated either on others for the underlings to see, or on the underlings themselves. A criminal is less inclined to give the police information on one of his associates if the person is known to employ extreme violence against his enemies. In the cold case murder of Raina Risen, the crime was ultimately solved not through forensic evidence, but by the police breaking through the warped sense of loyalty and violence that pervades the criminal underworld. 38-year-old Jason Tibbs was arrested in August 2013 for the murder of Raina Risen. The arrest came as a surprise to many in LaPorte County, who expected her killer to be an outsider like Dwayne Hall. But it turns out that he was in fact at the top of the suspect list at the beginning of the investigation. At the time of Raina's disappearance and murder, Tibbs was 18 and had briefly dated Risen. It was quickly determined that Tibbs still held a flame for Raina, as indicated in letters that he wrote to her in which he said he would go to almost any extreme to date her again. A ring that was identified as belonging to Tibbs was also found in Raina's abandoned car. Also, in the years after Raina's murder, Tibbs developed a reputation as a violent thug in LaPorte County. When Raina's sister and former classmates graduated from high school and went on to start careers and families, Jason Tibbs graduated from the School of Hard Knocks. Tibbs had encounters with the police throughout the 1990s and was known as a tough guy within the local criminal underworld. Ricky Hammonds was 14 when Raina Risen was murdered. Like Tibbs, he was a bit of a juvenile delinquent who enjoyed skipping school and smoking pot. And also like Tibbs, he immersed himself in the LaPorte County's criminal underworld during the 1990s. In 1999, at the age of 20, Hammond shot and killed a man in rural LaPorte, which landed him in the Wabash, Indiana State Prison with a 45-year sentence. Life had not gone well for Ricky Hammonds. Then, in 2008, for reasons that are debated, Hammonds reached out to LaPorte County detectives with information in the cold case murder of Raina Risen. Tibbs's attorneys argued that Hammonds made up the information for a reduction to his sentence, but LaPorte County prosecutor denied that, stating there was no deal with a witness, despite the suggestion there was. A man has a lot of time to contemplate his life behind bars. Perhaps feelings of remorse and sympathy for the Risen family, combined with no reason to fear Tibbs anymore, made Hammonds come forward. It may also be that he just wanted to get even with Tibbs for some reason. Tibbs was known to intimidate and bully younger delinquents in LaPorte County, so maybe Hammonds finally saw his chance to get even. Regardless of his reasons, Hammond's statements to LaPorte County investigators quickly got the ball rolling that led to Tibbs's arrest. Hammonds told the authorities that on the night of March 26, 1993, he was smoking marijuana in the hayloft of a pole barn when a car pulled in that was driven by his sister's boyfriend, Eric Freeman, with Jason Tibbs along as passenger. He said that Tibbs then opened the trunk of the car, where he could see what appeared to be a body wrapped in a blanket. Freeman argued with Tibbs over what happened before Hammonds then snuck out of the barn. Although Hammonds' statement appeared to verify what many LaPorte County investigators originally thought, more evidence was needed to corroborate his story in order to make an arrest. The next step was to locate Eric Freeman. Locating Eric Freeman was easy, as he too was incarcerated on a murder conviction, where it is possible that Ricky Hammonds may have been driven by a combination of remorse and sympathy to come forward with information in the murder of Raina Risen. Eric Freeman was clearly driven by fear, the fear of spending the rest of his life in prison. Although Freeman is currently serving time in prison for murder, he, like most murderers, will probably be paroled someday. The likelihood of him ever being released would be severely diminished if he was convicted of another murder. But nearly 20 years later, Freeman feared spending the rest of his life in prison more than his former friend. On November 7, 2014, primarily due to the testimonies of Hammonds and Freeman, Jason Tibbs was found guilty of the murder of Raina Risen and sentenced to 40 years in prison. Under the Indiana Department of Corrections parole system, Tibbs will probably serve just under 20 years, despite the length of the saga to bring Raina's killer to justice and what many believed was too lenient of a sentence for Tibbs. The Risen family has finally found some peace and closure. Hopefully now my family can find some semblance of peace from what we've been through for the last 20 years, said Raina's father, Ben Risen. Thanks for joining us on this gripping exploration of the Raina Risen murder case. If you have any theories or insights into the case, share them in the comments below. See you in the next investigation.